Big thanks to Lit RPG Reads and, of course, to our fine fellow Paul Bello for suggesting this awesome deep dive. This topic really hits home for me. Just a few sessions back, I was playing a druid in our campaign. We were deep in this creepy ancient temple, and I'd scoped out the next chamber with my hawk familiar, classic druid move, and spotted this hulking gargoyle just guarding the way forward. Naturally wanted to transform into something equally intimidating, assert dominance. But there I was, stuck using a whole action to become a bear, leaving me wide open for the gargoyle to just pummel me before I could even land a blow. It was not my most glorious moment. So when Paul sent in this article about the upcoming wild shape changes, I was all ears.
The article, which is titled Wild Shape Druid Rules Update, What D&D Players Need to Know in 2024 from Lit RPG Reads, really digs into how the developers are responding to long-standing player feedback. It seems like they've been listening to the frustrations around wild shape's limitations, and they're making some pretty substantial changes to address those pain points.
Yeah, I was blown away reading this. First of all, activating wild shape is no longer a full action. It's a bonus action. This is massive for druids in combat. Imagine. You can transform into a dire wolf and still have an action to attack, cast a spell, or get out of dodge if things get hairy. You're not sacrificing an entire turn just to change forms, which honestly made druids feel a bit clunky in certain situations. Now you can seamlessly weave those transformations into your turn, making you a much more dynamic force on the battlefield.
This change really opens up a lot of tactical possibilities. For instance, imagine a scenario where your party is ambushed. Now, as a druid, you can react instantly, using your bonus action to transform into a fierce bear and immediately engage the enemy, protecting your allies while they get their bearings. This agility just wasn't possible before, and it makes druids much more versatile and responsive in combat encounters.
It's like going from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. And it's not just about combat either. Remember the old reduced to growls and barks thing in a wild shape? We'll say goodbye to that frustration. Druids can now speak in beast form, which has huge implications for both strategy and role-playing.
Being able to communicate freely in beast form opens up a whole new world of strategic coordination and role-playing depth. Let's say you're scouting ahead as a wolf. Now you can report back to your party, detailing enemy positions, potential traps, or anything else you've observed. You can coordinate flanking maneuvers, call for assistance, or even use intimidation tactics while maintaining your disguise.
It's like you're a secret agent infiltrating the enemy camp. Except your disguise is actually turning into an animal.
Yeah.
And think about how this impacts spellcasting. So many druid spells have verbal components. Now, you're not sacrificing your spellcasting versatility when you shapeshift. You can whisper a healing spell as a tiny hummingbird, or maybe even cast a powerful lightning bolt while disguised as a harmless badger.
It completely changes the way you think about spellcasting as a druid. You're no longer limited to spells with only somatic or material components while in beast form. This freedom of choice adds a whole new layer of strategic complexity and allows you to tailor your spells to the specific situation. Regardless of your current form, it's a brilliant change that really enhances the druid's versatility and effectiveness.
And on top of that,
Yeah.
we've got the addition of temporary hit points when you wild shape.
Yeah.
You gain temporary hit points equal to your druid level every time you transform. So at level 5, you have an extra 5 hit points to absorb damage. At level 10, you get 10, and so on. This makes you far more durable, able to really mix it up in close combat without getting squashed like a bug.
This change really leans into the idea of druids tapping into the raw power of nature. It's not just about assuming the form of a beast, it's about channeling its primal energy and resilience. And the scaling of temporary hit points ensures that this added durability remains relevant as your character progresses. You're not just a squishy spellcaster hiding behind a bear facade. You're a force of nature capable of withstanding serious punishment.
It's like having an extra layer of bark or scales, bolstering your defenses,
Right.
and letting you really get up close and personal with your enemies. And then to make things even more interesting, there's a new armor class calculation for wild shape. It's 13 plus your wisdom modifier, which is huge for druids who've invested heavily in that stat.
What's significant about this change is that it provides druids with a more consistent and reliable AC while in beast form, without being tied to the natural armor of the creature they transform into. This means you can choose forms based on their strategic advantages, like movement speed, special abilities, or even thematic coolness, without worrying about sacrificing your defense. A high-wisdom druid can now be a nimble panther darting through the forest, or a tough rhinoceros holding the line, all while maintaining a solid level of protection.
So you're saying that a high wisdom druid can finally be that terrifying owl bear they always dreamed of being, without being a complete pushover defensively. I like it. And the changes to how you recover wild shape uses are just as cool. You still get all your uses back on a long rest, but now you can recover some on a short rest too. This is a game changer for resource management, especially during those long dungeon crawls or multi-encounter adventures.
This flexibility really encourages more strategic use of wild shape. You're not hoarding it like some precious treasure, afraid to use it early on in case you need it later. Now you can adapt to the situation, burning through your uses in a tough encounter. Knowing you have a chance to replenish them during a short rest, this allows for a more dynamic playstyle, where you can react to the challenges at hand without constantly worrying about conserving your resources.
It's like having a reserve tank of wild shape power, ready to kick in when you need it most. But what happens when you're in a real pinch and you've used up all your wild shape uses? That's where the new Wild Resurgence feature comes in. You can now spend a spell slot to regain a wild shape use. It's a high-stakes gamble, but it could be the difference between victory and defeat in a crucial moment.
This adds a fascinating layer of decision-making to the Druid's toolkit. Do you hold on to your spell slots for crucial offensive or defensive spells? Or do you sacrifice one to maintain your shape-shifting prowess? It creates a dynamic tension in resource management, where you're constantly weighing the immediate benefits against the potential future costs. This makes playing a druid even more engaging and nuanced, as you have to adapt your strategy on the fly and make tough choices based on the ever-changing circumstances of the adventure.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground already, from bonus action transformations to temporary hit points and even strategic spell slot sacrifices. But believe it or not, there's even more to unpack. When we come back, we'll dive into the awesome Wild Companion feature, explore how the Circle of the Moon subclass is getting amped up, and discuss some tips for maximizing all these incredible new additions. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now, before the break, we were discussing Wild Resurgence, which lets druids regain a wild shape used by spending a spell slot. This ties into another fascinating addition, the Wild Companion feature. This is where things get really interesting, especially for those who love the flavor and tactical advantages of animal companions.
Okay, Wild Companion. This is the one where you basically get to cast Find Familiar.
Yeah.
Without any components, right? And it's not just any familiar, it's a spirit beast. Like a spectral wolf or a shadowy hawk. It's like having a mystical, ethereal buddy who's always there to back you up.
Exactly. And the article from LitterPG Reads provides a handy chart. With various examples of how these spirit beasts can be utilized, it really highlights the versatility of this feature. For instance, imagine you're exploring a dense forest. You could send your hawk familiar to scout ahead, giving you a bird's eye view of the terrain and alerting you to any potential dangers lurking in the shadows. Or if you're facing a particularly tough combat encounter, a wolf companion could provide flanking maneuvers, harassing the enemy and creating openings for your allies to exploit.
This is making me think about all the cool role-playing possibilities, too. Imagine using a stealthy cat familiar to infiltrate a guarded mansion, gathering intel while your party prepares for a daring heist, or if you're trying to negotiate a tricky treaty with a reclusive tribe. A wise owl companion could serve as a symbol of your connection to nature, lending gravitas to your words, and perhaps even swaying the outcome in your favor.
It's not just about utility either. The Wild Companion feature adds a whole new layer of flavor and personality to the Druid class. These spirit beasts are extensions of the Druid's connection to the natural world, reflecting their individual personality and approach to nature's magic. It's a subtle but significant touch that adds depth and richness to the role-playing experience.
It really does make you feel like a true master of the wild, with these mystical creatures at your beck and call. But let's not forget about those who choose to walk the path of the moon. The Circle of the Moon subclass is getting some serious love in this update. Yeah. I'm excited to dig into the specifics.
The Circle of the Moon changes are particularly noteworthy because they really doubled down on what makes this subclass unique. Its focus on transformation and becoming a true beast of the wilds. One of the most impactful changes is to the Circle Forms feature, which dictates the challenge rating of the creatures you can transform into.
Yeah, this was a big limitation before. You were stuck with a CR of 1 for quite a while, which meant your shape-shifting options were pretty limited, especially at higher levels. But now things are getting a lot wilder. Instead of being capped at CR1, you can transform into creatures with a CR, up to 1/3 of your druid level.
This opens up a world of possibilities for moon druids. Imagine at 6th level, you could transform into a giant spider, weaving webs of entrapment, or a dire wolf leading the pack with primal ferocity. At 12th level, you could become a formidable brown bear, a true apex predator of the forest, or even a sleek panther, striking from the shadows with deadly precision.
It's like the devs are saying, go ahead, Moon Druids, embrace your inner beast. And it doesn't stop there. As you reach higher levels, you unlock even more incredible perks. At 10th level, your beast form attacks start dealing radiant damage, like you're channeling the power of the moon itself, and your constitution saving throws get a bonus, making you incredibly tough to take down.
These enhancements really solidify the Moon Druid's role as a frontline combatant. You're not just a shapeshifter anymore, you're a force of nature, radiating primal energy and capable of withstanding even the most devastating attacks. And to top it all off, there's a new ability called Moonlight Step. That's as cool as it sounds.
Moonlight Step. Okay, I've got to admit, the name alone has me intrigued. What does this mystical moonwalk entail?
Imagine this. You're surrounded by enemies, blades, flashing spells, crackling. As a bonus action, you vanish in a shimmer of moonlight, reappearing a short distance away, perhaps behind your attacker, ready to unleash a devastating blow. Moonlight Step allows you to teleport a short distance, essentially stepping through the moon's silvery rays.
It's like something out of a fantasy novel. Not only does it sound incredibly cool, but it also adds a whole new layer of tactical depth to combat. You can escape a dangerous situation, reposition yourself for a flanking attack, or even use it to create distractions, and sow chaos among your enemies.
It's a testament to the developer's attention to detail, blending both mechanical utility and thematic resonance. This ability perfectly captures the essence of the Circle of the Moon, evoking images of nocturnal predators dancing through the shadows, harnessing the power of the moon to become elusive and unpredictable hunters.
It's these little touches that really elevate the game, making it feel more immersive and engaging. Speaking of engagement, I'm curious about how these changes will affect the overall perception of druids in the D&D world. For a long time, they've occupied a somewhat niche role, often viewed as either healers or nature-themed spellcasters. But these updates seem to push them into a whole new realm of possibilities.
That's an insightful observation. You're right, druids have often been pigeonholed into specific roles, and their combat potential has sometimes been overshadowed by other classes. But these changes really highlight their versatility and power, blurring the lines between traditional class archetypes.
I mean, think about it. With enhanced action economy, temporary hit points, improved AC, and a wider array of beast forms, druids can now stand toe-to-toe with fighters and barbarians, dishing out damage, soaking up attacks, and controlling the battlefield with their unique nature-themed abilities.
It's a shift in perception that has the potential to ripple throughout the D&D community. Players who might have previously dismissed druids as being too worth or too specialized may now reconsider their options, drawn to the class's newfound versatility and combat prowess. And for those who have always loved the druid's connection to nature and its unique blend of spellcasting and shapeshifting, these changes are a dream come true.
It's like the druid has finally come into its own, embracing its full potential as a force of nature to be reckoned with. I'm excited to see how these changes play out in actual campaigns, how players and dungeon masters alike will adapt their strategies and storytelling to incorporate these exciting new possibilities. But before we get too carried away with speculation, let's dive into some practical tips for maximizing these changes and truly becoming a master of the wild. All right, so we've explored all these incredible changes coming to Wild Shape in the 2024 Player's Handbook. From bonus action transformations to spirit beast companions and moonlight teleportations, it's clear that druids are getting a major upgrade. But with all these new tools at their disposal, it can be a bit overwhelming to figure out how to maximize their potential. So let's talk strategy. What are some key things players should keep in mind when adapting to this new Wild Shape landscape?
One of the most crucial aspects of mastering Wild Shape is choosing the right beast form for the situation. With the expanded circle forms options for moon druids, and the new wisdom-based AC calculation, players have more flexibility than ever before. It's no longer just about finding the creature with the highest stats, it's about analyzing the specific needs of the encounter and selecting a form that best suits those needs.
So it's like being a wildlife expert. But instead of studying animal behavior, you're studying their combat capabilities and tactical advantages. You've got your speedsters, your tanks, your crowd control specialists, your stealth operatives. It's a whole menagerie of options.
Precisely. Consider the terrain, the enemy types, your party composition, and even the overall goals of the encounter. Do you need to close the distance quickly and engage in melee combat? A dire wolf or a panther might be ideal. Are you facing a horde of smaller enemies? A giant spider with its web attack could be a game changer. Or perhaps you need to scout ahead, or infiltrate a secure location. A stealthy cat or a bird with keen senses would be invaluable.
It's like building a custom toolkit of animal transformations. each one tailored to a specific purpose. And with the ability to transform as a bonus action, you can swap between these forms on the fly, adapting to the ever-changing flow of combat. It's like having a Swiss Army knife of animal abilities.
And let's not forget about those special abilities that certain creatures possess. A giant eagle's flyby attack can disrupt enemy formations. A constrictor snake can grapple and restrain foes. And a giant toad's swallowing ability can take an enemy out of the fight entirely. Don't underestimate the tactical value of these unique abilities. They can often turn the tide of battle in your favor.
It's like each creature has its own secret weapon, a hidden ace up its sleeve. And it's up to the player to discover and utilize those abilities to their full potential. But it's not just about brute force and tactical maneuvers. It's also about resource management, especially when it comes to spell slots.
With the addition of Wild Resurgence, Druids now have a crucial decision to make: conserve spell slots for powerful spells, or expend them to fuel their shapeshifting abilities. It's a delicate balancing act that requires careful consideration and adaptation to the specific circumstances of the encounter.
It's like playing a strategic board game, where each spell slot is a precious resource that must be deployed wisely. Do you go all in on shapeshifting, becoming a whirlwind of primal fury? Or do you hold back, keeping those spell slots in reserve for a crucial healing spell or a devastating area of effect attack?
The key is to be adaptable and to think ahead. Assess the situation, evaluate your party's needs, and anticipate potential challenges. If you know you're heading into a dungeon crawl, where encounters are likely to be frequent and resources will be scarce, you might prioritize conserving spell slots for healing and support. But if you're facing a single powerful enemy, it might be worth expending a spell slot to maintain your shape-shifting advantage and unleash your full primal might.
It's all about making those tough choices and adapting your strategy on the fly. And of course, let's not forget about our Spirit Piece buddies, the Wild Companions. These ethereal companions add a whole new dimension to both combat and role-playing.
The Wild Companion isn't just a pet, it's an extension of the Druid's will, a manifestation of their connection to the natural world. And its uses are as varied as the creatures themselves. Imagine sending your hawk familiar to scout ahead, providing reconnaissance and early warning of enemy movements, or using your stealthy cat companion to infiltrate a guarded fortress, gathering intel or even disabling traps.
It's like having your own personal spy network, a team of animal operatives working behind the scenes to gather information, create distractions, and support your party's efforts. And don't underestimate the value of their companionship. In a world of Dungeons and Dragons, a loyal spirit beast can provide comfort, guidance, and even a touch of humor in tense situations.
It's a reminder that the Druid's power isn't just about raw strength or magical ability, it's about their deep connection to the natural world, and their ability to harness its wisdom and power. These new wild shape changes embody that philosophy, giving Druids the tools to become true masters of the wild, capable of adapting to any challenge and thriving in any environment.
So what does this all mean for aspiring or even veteran Druids? Well, it means that Wild Shape is no longer a one-size-fits-all ability. It's a dynamic, multifaceted tool that requires careful planning, strategic decision-making, and a deep understanding of the natural world. It's about embracing the versatility of the Druid class, experimenting with different forms, mastering their abilities, and finding creative ways to weave them into your playstyle.
These changes are a game changer, not just for Druids, but for the entire D&D experience. They challenge players to think outside the box, to break free from traditional class roles, and to embrace the true potential of nature's magic. And I, for one, can't wait to see what amazing stories and memorable moments will emerge from this newfound freedom.
Absolutely. I'm already itching to start a new campaign. Put these changes to the test. And on that note, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Which of these new Wild Shape features are you most excited to try out in your next campaign? What kind of crazy combos or tactical maneuvers are you already dreaming up? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And a final nod to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for suggesting this fascinating topic. Your insights are always appreciated.
Until next time, happy gaming, everyone.